Let's talk about Jacob's daughter Dinah. Notice how the children of Jacob are mentioned. When a child is mentioned, it is by the mom of the child. And this was done because Jacob does hold the children in different regards based on the mom. Jacob loved Rachel but not Leah, but this did not mean he did not love the children. This was ancient culture. Things were done differently, especially compared to today's standards. And so we need to do our best to understand respective culture rather than labeling it as good or bad and dismissing the bad. Dinah goes out to see other women of the land, so she may have made friends or looking to build some relationships. There is nothing to suggest that Dinah did anything inappropriate, and in this chapter and Jacob's lineage, Dinah plays a major role. Dinah was a young woman and based on different resources and dates, she was probably about 15 years old. Joseph was born around 1700 BC. And this particular incident occurred around 1685 BC, so Dinah was about 15. Dinah was a young girl and by today's standards, not yet a woman. She was probably attractive. And when Shechem the son of Hamor the Hivite laid eyes on her, he acted inappropriately. He forced himself and defiled the young Dinah. Notice the name Shechem, which is the name of the city. His dad was said to be the prince of the country. And when Shechem saw Dinah, he forced himself. And it did not take him long to confess his love for her. We are unsure if Shechem had seen Dinah prior and was attracted to her, or if he saw a young woman and lusted after her. Obviously, he lusted after her, but not sure if it happened in the spur of the moment or over a period of time, but the act that followed was not voluntary from Dinah. This illustrated the man had serious issues of self-control and acted on weakness. Shechem goes to his dad, the prince, and requests to be married. This could probably be seen as a demand. And based on God leading Jacob away from certain places, Jacob was not wise in settling in or near the same region God called him out of. As mentioned earlier, it was not inappropriate for Dinah to go out in the way she did. But it probably wasn't the smartest decision she could have made. She should have been supervised and watched after by Jacob or one of her brothers. It was not the smartest decision because Canaan was an unholy and ungodly city. And it was instructed different times previously not to marry Canaanite women, so this was not the safest place for Jacob and his families to be in or near. In ancient societies, it was not uncommon for young women who were unaccompanied to be viewed as fair game because of how rampant promiscuity was, so Shechem was probably used to having his way, especially with him having high connections. He says he loves her, but the type of love that he had was not a godly love. It was not spiritual in any means, so it's hard to fathom there was any real genuine love behind the emotions he felt for Dinah. When Jacob learns about what has happened, he decides to do nothing for the time being. I like this approach because when you allow anger to take over your behavior, all the wrong things occur. There are resources that teach that Jacob was not outraged at the news. But we are not told one way or the other, but based on how Jacob has responded in the past. He tends to be more methodical in the way he does things. Rather than acting quickly, he thinks things through, and this is a good lesson for each of us. Jacob held his peace, and this is always a winning strategy. He waits for his sons to return from the field. The sons tend to be outraged, and regardless of what culture, family bonds run strong. However, in certain societies and cultures, they run stronger. And this tends to be the case in the Middle East. Hamor, Shechem's dad, comes out to visit Jacob. But two things are uncertain. We are not sure if Hamor knows Jacob, and the families know what has taken place. and we are not sure if Shechem came along for this visit. But there are different resources that believe he was present. Jacob holds his peace for the meeting. And so do the brothers, but the brothers have revenge on their mind. The brothers see this act as inappropriate, unacceptable. And not just an act against Dinah, but one against Israel. Here, for the very first time, Scripture describes an event going against Israel. Hamor uses flattering words to try to sway Jacob. "The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give her him to wife." Maybe Hamor is trying to convince the families that his son's love is sincere, and they have nothing to worry about because he wants to marry Dinah. It is unclear at this point of Dinah's location, but she was probably being kept at Shechem's home. Hamor proposes to Jacob that more marriages take place, and even encourages Jacob to make this their permanent home. "And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you dwell, and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein." This could be seen as a great business opportunity for the families. But at the same time, this does not make up for what has been done to Dinah. Shechem offers anything they desire for Dinah. And from this verse, we know that Shechem was present, and his self-control was on display once again. Again, Shechem may have had feelings for Dinah, but not love. Not love that is required from a husband and wife in a marriage. To Dinah's brothers, this probably seemed more like a bribe than a real marriage proposal, and while we are not told directly, it does seem that Shechem and Hamor have some idea of their knowledge of what's been done to Dinah. Dinah's brothers did get some teachings and lessons from Jacob as they tricked Hamor and Shechem into circumcision. They said they could not give their sister to someone uncircumcised. But their request was not for only Shechem to be circumcised, but all males of the city. They are clear, if the request is not honored, they will take Dinah and leave. For Shechem, this was pleasant to hear, and he did so quickly. And upon entering the city, they informed the townspeople of what has occurred. The good news from Hamor and Shechem, Jacob and his families were peaceful with them, and circumcision must take place. Scripture tells us that this did take place. All the males were circumcised, and they were still sore 3 days later. This is where the story really takes a twist as Simeon and Levi enter into the city and avenge what was done to Dinah. They avenge Dinah based on their perception. And while many would agree with this sentiment, it was not the way to handle business. But Simeon and Levi have no intention of allowing Dinah to remain with Shechem. The circumcision was proposed so the men would be easier to overtake. Dinah's 2 brothers were enraged and bloodthirsty. And on that 3rd day, they took their swords and killed all the men, including Hamor and Shechem. Here, we learn that Dinah was with Hamor and Shechem, so she was being held captive, but Simeon and Levi did not stop here. No, instead, they looted the entire city because of what happened to Dinah. Simeon and Levi apparently were joined by other brothers in destroying the city. And they took the city's wealth, possessions, wives and little ones. Unfortunately, it was common during this period of history to capture wives from other captured nations and remarry them. When Jacob finds out what has happened, he was not happy, and very concerned for what was to come. "Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me. And I shall be destroyed, I and my house." This response was an indication that Jacob did not know about Simeon and Levi's plan for revenge. Whether or not it truly matters, Dinah was Simeon and Levi's full sister, so there was a real bond between them.